we're back. Hello and welcome to the Hypertrophy Odyssey chapter 80. Wow. It is the third day of the week, aka the vampire killer workout. I am looking forward to going to the gym. My left knee hurts, which is annoying, but it's not that big of a deal today, especially since I'm not doing anything lower body related, so it is what it is. I'll probably do some like leg extensions or something to try to get the blood flowing in the area. But anyways, today I was kind of stuck for an idea of what to talk about, and then I looked at the list of topic ideas, and then the one that stuck out to me the most as soon as I saw it: optimism. I am generally an optimistic type of person. I like being on the positive side of things. There have been enough times in life, instances where looking on the bright side has been beneficial for me. There have been a lot of times, maybe one day we'll get into a bunch of previous history stories, but that's for a different day, a different story. Today, generally speaking, I just wanted to talk about optimism because it's very hard to be optimistic nowadays, especially because, you know, the world is so doom and gloom. It's hard to not take, what is it, the doomer pill, although the doomer pill is just a disguised black pill, which is annoying. Maybe one day I'll make an episode about the black pill, but I have to add that to the list, all the other pills as well. Personally, when it comes to optimism, I tend to go on the side of optimism versus pessimism. I feel like most people, well, not most people, but it is truly a 50-50 worldview shot on as to how you would see things. Some people are way more optimistic than pessimistic, and on both sides there are those degrees that go into the extremes. So for example, you know, the super optimistic person where everything is going to go right no matter what the very first time with nothing going wrong, and then you have the pessimistic people where everything is going to go wrong every single time no matter what, and you know, whatever. Those are the two instances I think of whenever I think of optimism and pessimism. There will probably be a pessimism video some other time, but it's hard to talk about optimism without mentioning the other side of the coin, and I think that's the big thing, is that it's just the other side of it, right? It's both related in the same way. You know, when you see a glass halfway filled, is it full or half empty? That entire saying is based off of the same thing in theory, because the glass is technically half full, you know? I mean, that's the realist part. I have a certain disdain for the term realist, just because realist is somebody that will put too much stock in like statistics and or just like the idea that things will have to happen, like it is like 50-50 shot for this, like, yeah, I get it, buddy. I'm not a big fan of you because you don't believe in luck or anything like that. So goodbye. Or they more err towards the sides of pessimism, and you can obviously tell that they are not as like keen on being hopeful of stuff. It's like they're optimistic with a underlying tinge of sarcasm. There you go, that's the word. And I gotta write that on the list because I gotta do sarcasm. But optimism, yeah, I usually am on the side of optimism. We as a people, why we shouldn't be optimistic, I understand why people aren't, because generally speaking, of course, most of the time it is negative experiences in the past. They usually color people. It's always interesting to think about that personally. You know, it was the one thing that was probably from a past childhood memory that nobody really technically don't remember, but you do remember it subconsciously, that ends up coloring the entire way you look at things, which is insane because you really will never know exactly what that one memory is. Well, some people will, but for a majority of them, they don't know exactly what that one thing will be, and when that one thing will just color the rest of their personality for the rest of their lives. It's very interesting stuff. That's why development of a child is very important, because if you instill things that will help them grow and be positive in life, it will just compound and grow exponentially versus the other way around. And people don't realize that, but I don't have a child, so I can't say anything about that per se, but also it's really just like the first 7 years of life, and then after that it's just a slowly guiding game. After that you're done. But it is what it is. But speaking about optimism, I don't know, maybe I've just been optimistic all of my life. I don't know why I've been more on that side of the fence. Maybe I've had enough things where I think that the good thing's gonna happen, so the good thing happens. So maybe that's probably what it is. I don't know why I've been like that, but I always see it as more beneficial for me if I hope that the good thing happens and it happens. I'm not one to be disappointed. I'm more of a, oh, that type, like, oh, okay. It is what it is probably I say that all the time on here. There's probably going to be like a montage of that eventually, of how many times I say that. It's never anything bad. I try not to look at the bad per se, although I do. There are things that piss me off, but that's a whole other story. Things that piss me off aren't necessarily bad per se. Well, depends. But generally speaking, I try not to dwell on those things too much, because staying in too much of a one emotion, particularly on one side or the other, you're gonna be, controlled via that. So it's those people that do like rage bait stuff. So then that way you get angry and then you start commenting and then thank you for the engagement, that entire thing. But that's why I generally like to stay the optimistic side of stuff. I feel like generally my demeanor is to help people. So that's what I would like to do. Optimism, thing that I think we'll get more into detail in the voiceover. Taking the optimism pill is a good call, especially if you are not about that. We'll get into a bunch of stuff like perspectives and all that other jazz on the inside. I'll see you there. Alright, so on this day I start off with overhead press. Got 6 here. You could have gotten 1 more maybe, but I was pushing it, but whatever. It is what it is. So generally, it's funny that I made this video, the optimism video, because after this entire gym session, you'll just see. I don't want to like drag you along and do like the wait till the end. You'll see what happens at the end of this video, which it's just kind of funny. But anyways. Generally speaking, I generally choose the optimism over the pessimism. I feel like that is the better way to have a lease on life, at least. I feel like people who tend to err on the side of pessimism tend to live lives that are worse, and or just they are self-limiting themselves a lot of the time, and that's a big issue for me personally. I feel like you should never really limit yourself no matter what, even if it's like in the realm of realism. I understand why people do it. Obviously, you don't want to get your hopes up to the high, but still, I think that these people who generally go on the pessimistic side generally are people who will take it to the extreme and make it so nothing really ever works out for them ever. So I'm not a huge fan of it. Not a fan of that at all. That's the other thing about it too, is going on either way, being too optimistic and being too pessimistic at the same time as well. Both are similar in that sense that if you're staying at each end of the spectrum, you can have a lot of issues in that, yeah, even though I err on the side of optimism, I don't try to go too crazy with it where like, I'm gonna win the lottery like every time I buy a lottery ticket or something like that. I think that's like asinine, but also you gotta be careful about doing things like that, just because that is, you're gonna get your hopes too high up, if that makes any sense, as well as going the opposite direction, which I mentioned earlier, where you don't even have any hopes at all, where like, you're paralyzed by the idea that you're just gonna die, you know what I mean, or something like that. You won't even take a chance on something because you know that it's not gonna work, or you think it's not gonna work, I should say. And I think going to the extremes, obviously, are always bad. And when it comes to this, when it comes to extreme emotion, that's a completely different story, because you can go to the extremes on those, but there is something to be said about the elasticity of feelings versus something like a outlook on life. And I think I mentioned it briefly that perspective is really what changes the person's viewpoint on whether or not the glass is half empty or half full. Perspective really. And I think it's key to think about that when thinking about others and how they see life and stuff. I personally try to be as understanding to others as I can be, but sometimes I can also just say there is some level of anger, I guess I would say, towards another person whose perspective for some reason is trapped in like this weird bubble and or place in which it can't grow from. And those are the types of people that, unfortunately, as much as you would like to help them, will refuse to help themselves. So in reality, they'll just let you drag yourself down to them rather than you trying to drag them up to you. So when it comes to perspective like that, there's only so much you can handle while trying to like understand somebody else's perspective before it could start reflecting onto you. Speaking about that, actually, I think of a quote. Nietzsche, I believe, said this, where it was stare into the abyss long enough and the abyss stares back at you. So basically, you know, if you look into the darkness or the negativity at a certain point, it's going to reflect on you as a person, and you're going to see the bad sides reflecting in your personality or your nature. And that's why I always find it so idiotic why people would look into the negative side of stuff or the pessimistic side of things, because realistically, if you keep looking at it, it's just going to reflect more and more on your life. And I don't think people realize how much that has an influence on themselves, and for some reason it's just something that flies by the wayside for people. I personally don't get it. It's like they don't realize, like, I guess we don't take basic psychology, you know, like 101 for most people, but I feel like most college kids take it, so I feel like at least, you know, you're gonna have some level of basic knowledge of what you give out is what you give in type deal. But I guess it's not that common. I don't understand why it's not. That's why I don't like memes personally that are like about heartbreak or like depression, or like I've wasted the last 5 months of the year, or the first 5 months of the year, or it's already halfway through 2024 and I've done absolutely nothing. Things like that are very, I wouldn't say cringe, but they're very, like, you are putting yourself in this rut in your own mind, and then you are putting it out there because it's a reflection of how you feel about things. But by putting it out there as a reflection of how things are going, it's like you double down on it. You're spiritually and psychologically, you're going down that rabbit hole together. For some reason, it's as if you don't want to get out of that. You don't want to leave that weird, like, circular motion down. And I personally don't understand it. Like I was saying before, you see this a lot circulated via memes, and memes are probably the closest form of art we'll get to sometime in a different episode, but that's the closest form of art that is modern and true to the forms of art that are nowadays. But they are self-reflections of the soul into something that most people can get. But I'm not a huge fan of social media in general, because once you get into a loop there, it will keep showing you things that are similar to the things that you like. So if you create something that's like that, you'll just see the same things over and over again. And or if you like something, it'll just keep showing it to you, so you end up doom scrolling the same things over and over again. And so it's like as if you reinforce the feelings that you had at the beginning of when you started scrolling, and it makes it 10 times worse, because then you have to deal with the infinite loop of social media reinforcing whatever you're feeling, especially if it's a shit feeling like depression or something like that, or just negativity. It's going to keep forcing it down your throat, and that could lead to massive amounts of issues. But I think it's lost on people that the better outlook you have on life, the better your life will be. I briefly discussed it in my luck video, where if those who believe in better luck have better luck in their life. And that is just a psychological thing, but generally speaking, that applies to almost everything when it comes to anything perspective or with the brain or anything like that. Because really, if you just believe that certain things will happen, and the entire idea of speaking it into existence, which will be a whole other episode, but it is something that is not taken upon people to do, and is quite baffling, because it is simple stuff like that can really pivot and change people's minds. I mean, it's almost like as if that episode of Seinfeld where George Costanza does the opposite of everything that he would normally do, and everything starts going right for him. I feel like these people should just try to do the opposite of how they think, and then see how that goes, because more likely than not, it'll probably go well. So it's one of those you hope that they learn someday. Also, while I have a moment here, I wanted to mention this. If you ever have any ideas for videos that you would like for me to cover, I would love to do any. Please leave them in the comments below, because I actually would take any suggestion and probably make it into a video. So if you have any, please leave it in the comments below. And we're back. Hello and welcome to the workout debriefing. Exercises not filmed, none. Exercises skipped, also none. I am tired and pissed the fuck off. I got a fucking parking ticket. Look at that. Fucking A. $45 down the fucking drain that I don't have. Always love it when they fuck me. Also like this. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. You know, this entire episode was about to be about optimism, and it is just literally so fucking hard to be optimistic about anything when everything that you might be going right goes the complete opposite direction for you. While in the fucking locker room, when I threw my headphones into my bag, they bounced off of my bag and went on the floor and busted wide open, so I gotta go clean them and pray to God that they still work. And then I also came back to my car for this fucking thing, which is is great. Always love it when that happens, and it just happened too, which it makes it even more annoying. I swear, it's like sometimes the world conspires to make it so you go in the opposite direction for things. I am beyond pissed, and I'm hungry. It does not help at all. But I am so hopeful that something pops up right now that will be like, oh, this will be the saving grace for today. Maybe a job will come out of nowhere and fucking land in my lap that's amazing or something like that. I don't know. Maybe something that will be nice. And I'm looking forward to that, whatever that is, because that's how my brain works. Because if I keep going down the rabbit hole of saying things are fucked, then things are gonna be fucked. Anyways, I digress. Optimism is something that I like to look on the side of betterness, because it is generally better to be on the bright side, because if you keep looking at the small things, they're gonna bring you down to hell. Why doesn't anybody understand that ever? Everybody is always so realistic. Oh, you know, it's not realistic to look on the positive sides. You know, you can't be too blah 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 blah. They made a thing saying aim for the stars so you can fall in the sky. Fuck you! Anyway, the reason why they do that is because you don't want to lower your expectations. Those who take the other road are wrong and should be shunned for it. They are idiots and should be shunned for being so fucking stupid to realize that there's a limit on their potential. What fucking morons? Glass half empty? Yeah, you know what else is half empty? Your fucking brain, you retard. Why the fuck would you ever think like that? It is so asinine, and I get it. They've probably been hurt by some fucking stupid thing in the past or whatever the fuck happened to them, but get over it, you fucking retard. I know I'm being very pedantic and saying, oh my god, let's just take the field of psychology, squish it down into get over it, but realistically 90% of people could just get the fuck over it. I don't understand why they don't. They are stuck in this rut that they're never gonna get out of, and you know what I say to those people? Good luck, because you're never gonna get yourself out of it unless you want to get yourself out of it. And go, motherfuckers! I am beyond pissed. I don't even know if this is gonna make it into a video, because right now I am highly elevated and I just want to rant about something. So I will rant about this. If you are optimistic about stuff, good. Make the other people around your life optimistic as well, because that will be a better world around you. If you are a pessimist, go fuck yourself and shut up and don't tell anybody about your bullshit, because you're making the world worse, you fucking idiot. So, with that being said, tell me what you think in the comments below. I would love to know. I am personally an optimistic person, but sometimes, you know, a little bit of anger and rage comes out because I am passionate. If you are not passionate about things, well then why are you living? But anyways, thank you very much for watching. I will be back on tomorrow with something new. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I will be back on. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. I will see you on the next one. Peace.